So, hey guys, are you frustrated with where you're at right now? Maybe stunted in your progress? Well, if you are, I want to recommend a place for you to go called Growth Day. Growthday.com/ed. It is the #1 personal development app on the planet. It's got all kinds of high performance techniques in there, courses, accountability, journaling, live speeches from some of the top influencers in the world, including me. It's an overall environment to change your life. Growthday.com/ed.
Who did you have to become as a person to achieve this?
Certainly not who I was, that's for sure. Well, I would say this. I always grew up, I think I'll brag about one thing. I think I've always been a pretty kind-hearted person. I've always loved and cared about people. So I think that part of me was foundationally a really good thing.
Even before you started working with the boys?
Yeah, even before I worked at the orphanage, I think I was a pretty decent human.
Yeah.
But about everything else had to change. I had no self-confidence. I didn't have a real picture of what success looked like. Even as something as, seemingly insignificant of like having a vision and a dream for what I wanted. Like, I come from a really wonderful family. Everybody knows, most people know my dad was an alcoholic and a drug addict when I was young. But my family is not material oriented. It's not even really achievement oriented. We didn't take vacations as a family or anything like that. My family is just about loving one another and being a good family member, being a good human being and being generous. So even remember when I got into like the business world, people are like, what are your big dreams and goals? I'm like, I have no idea. And I would literally, and it's not a bad thing, I would find someone, I kind of modeled their life at first, like I'll test run. I remember one of my
See
first.
if that fits. How does that feel? Like
One of my first heroes was a guy, Hector was his name, and he lived on Balboa on the ocean, and then he had a golf house out in the desert. I didn't golf. But I'm like, well, that looks like a pretty good combo. I could live
like
on
fun.
the ocean, and then lo and behold, here's my life. I got a desert house and ocean houses and islands and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But really, I just modeled the dream. So everything from my ability to communicate to self-confidence to even having a vision for what I wanted, I was devoid of any of those things.
One of the, I went out to my audience to ask them if you could have this conversation with Ed, what would you ask? And lady Kelly Pedersen, who actually was at your event in December, October,
Okay.
November, the one in with Pete Vargas and them. She asked, "Do you ever deal with imposter syndrome?
Yes.
And how do you deal with it at this level?"
Yeah, I still do. I've had some situations where I was, I'm coaching somebody who's doing something really, really significant. Maybe they've run like a big country or something like that. And I'm like, why in the world are they listening to me right now? I've literally had those experiences. I won't say which one, but I feel okay about it. I'll give everybody permission to feel it. One of the people that I have worked with was a former president. And he was telling me that his first week in office, they were in a pretty stressful meeting, and he leaned back in his seat, kind of like just to collect his thoughts, and he looked, and over his shoulder was a picture of Abraham Lincoln. And it dawned on him in that moment, what in the world am I doing sitting here right now? This is like Lincoln's been here, Kennedy's been here, Reagan, whoever you admire, right? He goes, It was just like an out-of-body experience. He goes, I literally sort of floated for a minute, like I'm actually sitting here and I'm the actual president. So even somebody at that level had that experience, and I have that happen sometimes. I remind myself, I had a great conversation when I was young. I just used this word about you with Wayne Dyer. He wrote a book called The Power of Intention. Beautiful. And I met him when he was writing the book.
How'd you meet him?
I was running on the beach. I won an incentive trip in our financial company. The first trip I ever won to qualify.
Yeah.
And it was in Maui. I'd never been there before. And I got up. No one exercised back in those days. I was one of the first ever business athlete people.
That wasn't a thing.
Well, no one did it. I go to the gyms on trips. No one was there.
Okay.
And I read a book called The Corporate Athlete by a guy named Grappel. And I'm like, okay, I'll be a corporate athlete, a business athlete. So I'm up running early before the sun's up on the beach in Maui. This dude's running towards me. We both have Sony Walkmans on. Listen to cassettes. That's how long ago it was. This guy's bald, and he's got like a hairy back, and he's getting closer and closer. And I'm like, I don't want to bump into this dude's sweat,
Yeah.
And as he gets closer, I'm like,
space.
oh my gosh, it's Wayne Dyer. And he runs by me the other way, and I took my Walkman, I go, Dr. Dyer, you changed my life. And he has a deep voice like me, and I'll never forget, he turns around and looks at me and goes, I doubt that. I bet you changed your life, but how did I help you? And he starts to walk
Such
towards
a Wayne
me.
Dyer thing to
and I
say.
spent 90 minutes sitting on the beach with Wayne Dyer watching the sun come up. And when we were done, we became friends. But when we were done, he goes, Ed, I think you're going to change the world. To this day, I have no idea whether or not he said that to everybody. I don't know. But he made me believe it. And he goes, and it's not because of your big brain, and it's not because you're a great communicator. He goes, it's because of your intentions. I can just tell you intend to really do great things and good for humans. And he goes, do me a favor. Never link your confidence to your abilities, which is very foreign, because in baseball or when anything I do,
It's
like,
a
you get good
technical
at something.
skill, yeah.
He goes, you'll always be chasing your tail. You'll never be good enough. He goes, when you're under pressure, you're worrying. He goes, I just want you to focus on your intentions. Get your confidence from you intend to make a difference. You intend to serve. You intend to do right by people. Just right now, before we started, I said,
That's
I'm going to
good.
go over there really quick. You see how I
Yeah.
disappeared?
Yeah.
I went over there. I said a little quick prayer. I reminded myself of my intentions to help people today. And I sit here pretty confident, not in my ability necessarily, but in my intent to serve. That's all you can bring to the table is your intention. So most of my life, my confidence has come from a trilogy. In the Power of One More, I call it a trilogy. But it's my faith, my intentions, and then my ability to execute is third for me every single time. So my faith, I've got a God who loves me, that believes in me, that's given me great giftedness, that put me here to make a difference. And my intent is to do well. My intent is to contribute. My intent is to serve. I get a lot of confidence from that. And then my ability to execute is third. I got a lot of ability, but sometimes you'll find yourself in a circumstance that may exceed your capacity, may exceed your preparation.
ability.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you do in those moments? What are you going to rely on then? Right? At the highest level in sports, when I coach athletes, it's all predicated on ability, because everybody was the best player on their high school team.
They all
In their best
showed up.
league, they were
Yep.
all the best player on their college team. They're all the best. So at that level, the separator's ability? No, the separator's not ability. The separator's the ability to find your best performance at any given time. And for me, that's faith and intention.
So when you unpack that, I'm just going to summarize it for everybody listening. It's beautiful because the imposter syndrome may start to creep up, but you just have to go back to intention. I may not be the president today.
Yep.
I may not be the billionaire. I may not be as skilled as the person I'm helping, but I can go back to the core of who I know I am and why I'm showing up for this moment. And that is undeniable.
By the way, and it becomes very easy to escape it. Most things in your life that you have, one thing I told you today, I used this term with you today when we're working together. I said, you're so self-aware. You had said a thing about
Clinical.
being too clinical.
Yeah.
And I go, that's a better word than I was using to describe something that you need to work on. You're very, very self-aware. Same thing when there's a problem or a thought that doesn't serve you. Awareness makes it lose its power over you. So part of your brain, when you're not in coherence, so under pressure, if we're going to get technical.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, under pressure, what I work with my athletes on is not lowering their heart rate, although I think a lower heart rate is better for performance than higher. But the truth is, that's not really what messes us up. What messes us up is heart rate variability, where your heart's just at different beats. The variability quotient literally causes almost like a lobotomy for you. When your heart rate's racing like crazy, it's very difficult to think and perform clearly. So one of the things I'm constantly working on is just calming the variability, which is through breathing, which is through intention, which is through gratitude. And one of the powers is when I'm just aware I'm doing it. The thought loses its power over me. The anxiety loses its power over me. Once I'm aware of something, its power is reduced, and then I can use the techniques I have to reduce my heart rate variability so that I perform at a high level. So awareness is a really huge thing for me, just when I know I'm doing it.
So if anybody's having that imposter syndrome kick in, just be aware of it, get separate from it, see it, go back to intention.
And control your breathing.
And control your breathing.
One of the main things I work with my athletes on is breathing, and it's rhythmic breathing. That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But when you can control your breathing, rhythmic breathing in and out, so it's smooth and rhythmic breathing,
HRV, yeah.
and you actually breathe from your heart, because the electrical power in your heart's about 50 times greater than your brain. What begins to happen if you do that for about a minute, breathing from your heart's so important because it's where all the electrical power comes in our body. It's why we say,
I've heard there's
I love
intelligence in the heart.
What's that?
Intelligence in the heart.
The intelligence, all of it is centered there. So
Yeah.
to give you an example, your heart is sending messages to your brain. So when you hear guys use the word coherence, all coherence really means is lower heart rate variability, and there's a coherence between your brain and your heart working together. I didn't know we were going to go this deep, but it's one of the things I work on for performance with people. So one of the very basic things is just to do very rhythmic breathing. that begins to get that under control. That's why, like when we say, I love you with all my heart, right? When we hold a child to us, we don't hold them next to our knee or our shoulder. We hold them next to our heart.
To the chest.
So when you're in these situations, really, faith and intention is from the heart. So then I'll control my breathing from my chest, from my heart. And that combination mixed in with a little bit of gratitude for the moment. I told that president, I said, that comes up again. Control your breathing, focus on your intentions, focus on your faith. And then this may sound silly because everyone in personal development throws around gratitude. Gratitude's just a kicker. Gratitude's the kicker.
It's an amplifier.
Yeah. And I just go, I'm grateful to be in this moment. I'm grateful for this challenge. It's not the main thing. You can't go, I'm grateful, and you're like, oh, I'm grateful it's 3 and 2 ounces of energy. I'm not grateful, you're terrified. But if you can have the other things in place, gratitude is like the kicker to come from your heart. So it's just all little stuff that I do, but it's huge when I'm coaching athletes or peak performers or anybody in life. Even my son in his golf game. My daughter, before she takes a big test at Clemson, I'm like, let's get centered. God's got our back. Our intentions are to do our best. We've done all of our preparation. Let's do our rhythmic breathing from our heart and our chest. Let's be grateful for the opportunity. We're here and we have the money to be able to afford to go to this school, this amazing moment. Now let's execute and kick some ass.
It's fun for me because you've taught me so many things that I'm allowing God to kind of push me in directions, and he wants me to ask you about faith, but also the energy, because there's a lot of people say I'm not religious, but I believe in energy. And one of the things that I've loved about your message is that you have a faith, but you also believe in the quantum.
Big time.
Like, it sounds, for a lot of people, it doesn't make sense. How are they the same thing? If you had to unpack that for somebody or share your own story of like, where did that, it sounded like, God was always part of your life, but maybe the other side came in, or did it come at the same time?
That's an interesting question. I don't know what came first. Probably my faith came first, but so I wrote about that in the book. I have a chapter on it, and I was happy. The chapter on faith in the book took me as long to write as the rest of the book, because I was so concerned about, if I was too faith-based, I was being disrespectful to people of other faiths, that I admire people of faith in general. And then if I went too science-y, the faith people wouldn't like it. If I went too faithy, the science, and I just went, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to write what I actually believe. And that's just going to have to stand on its own. This is who I am. This is what I think. And so I'm a Christian. And so in my case, I have a Savior, which is Jesus Christ. That's the foundation of my life. It's the creator of the universe, is God. Having said that, though, I believe that there's a quantum field where there's energy and vibration. I just think came from a creator. Yeah. So the notion that there isn't energy to me is actually it's almost impossible for someone to believe.
Silly.
You feel energy right now.
Yeah.
There's a vibrational frequency. When you have a thought that you repeat, it vibrates at a higher and higher frequency, you end up drawing it into your world. So the idea that you don't sense energy, one thing I'm very intentional about is I know I'm always making people feel something. Most people are oblivious to this fact. You're always making people feel something. So go back to intention. I'm just slightly more intentional about what you're going to feel and experience when you're in my presence. That's vibrational frequency. So truth vibrates at the highest frequency. So the highest vibrational frequency is actually your own truth and your own faith. They're correlated. The Holy Spirit, to me, is an energy, is a sense, is a vibrational frequency. And so they're correlated for me. They're not the same thing, they're correlated. If you said I get to have one or the other, I will take my faith 100% of the time. But to understand that there's this field where I can have a knowing and a zone I'm in, and a vibrational frequency and a depth of wisdom and dimension to me that I don't have without it is silly to me. And so I'm a big energy guy. I make business deals based on energy, confirmed by prayer. When I give a speech, I give a speech, it's all about the energy that I'm putting out, confirmed by the prayer and the blessing, and hopefully the Holy Spirit gives me the words to use. So these two things together are awesome stuff. And one doesn't...
They're not mutually exclusive.
No, and I think sometimes people that are really devout in their faith are like, well, is that a you-centered thing or a God-centered thing? It's always a God-centered thing for me. But that's like saying that there's an ocean right here we're looking at right now that's beautiful, is it not? And it's making this noise behind us. Do you not feel an energy when you're closer to the water? Think about that, everybody.
Talking about for the last few days.
Yeah, most people will tell you, man, I don't know what happens when I'm getting around the water or the energy. I feel more at peace. That's because there's an energy coming from it. Now, who created that ocean? You're up to your own conclusions. For me, there's a all-knowing God in heaven that created that ocean. that I feel an energy and a peace from. So that's maybe the best description you can ever have in the real world is, when I look at that ocean, most days I go, thank you, God, it's so beautiful, so majestic. But there's an energy. Ask anybody who surfs, there's an energy. Right now we feel the energy of the ocean, right? Yeah. If we leave my house right now, because it's about 100 yards away, the closer we get to that water, the more we feel the vibrational
100%.
frequency and the energy from it. By the way, I want this clip because that was really good right there. That's really good.
Clip that.
So, that's for social.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, as you know, I've partnered up with my good friend Brennan Bouchard, who's created the greatest personal development system that has ever been designed, called Growth Day. If you go to growthday.com/ed, you can get all the information. But it's that time of year where everybody's trying to form new habits. They've got new resolutions and goals, and you need an environment and you need some coaches, and you need to be able to do it super inexpensively. And that's where growthday.com/ed comes in. There's everything from journaling to accountability programs, live messages every Monday from myself and other influencers. There's an opportunity for you to get courses that would cost thousands of dollars completely for free. It's incredible. Go to growthday.com/ed and check it out.
This quote by Thomas Edison said, "When you feel you've exhausted all options, remember this, you haven't."
I love that.
That's the power of one more.
Power of one more.
And so I have lived this book in my life. Like I have lived this mindset, and it has changed my life because I've always been just one step away, one habit away, one mindset away from this amazing life that I'm grateful and blessed to live.
Well, that's the truth, right? You're right. And I think the great lie in life is that, some scriptures say, well, where there's no vision, the people will perish. Whatever your scriptures are. Really, do you have no vision? If you ask the average person, you want to be happy or sad? What's your vision? They'd say, I want to be happy. You want to be rich or poor? Most people say, I'd like to be rich. Do you want to contribute or make no difference in the world? I want to contribute. Do you want beautiful memories or no memories? I want memories. So there's a vision. Our issue is depth perception. We think it's further away than it is. And because we think it's so far away, Jay, we create patterns and behaviors in our life that perpetually keep it there.
Ooh.
And that's what we do in our life. But what if that's the great lie of life? And what if the truth is that you're one relationship away, one meeting away, one conversation, one podcast, one interview, one new thought, one new emotion, one new tactic or strategy away from completely changing the trajectory of your life. And everyone that you and I know that we both work with, that we're blessed to work with in our lives, the truth is it was one decision, one meeting, one extra rep, one more phone call, one thing they did that changed their trajectory. And then the question then becomes, how do I do it? And so the strategies are in the book, but conceptually, that's 100% how you change your life.
Yeah, and you're so right. I was thinking about this morning. Last year, I had a double hernia surgery on the front. So I couldn't walk for about a month. And when I say I couldn't walk, I mean I literally couldn't move.
Oh my gosh.
It was I felt like I was teaching myself to walk again. That's how it felt. It's really interesting what you just said about how we perpetually push it far away. I would wake up every morning and my mind or my initial mindset was it will be gone today.
Yeah.
It must have gone today. Today it will be fully healed. I'll be fine today. And I would wake up and I wouldn't be. And I would feel like healing was so far away.
Yes.
It would be 80% away that I was missing out on the 1% change since yesterday.
You got it.
Since yesterday, I made 1% change. I wasn't feeling the same pain in my nerves. I was able to be flexible by 1% more.
Yes.
And I was missing out on all of that because I was so obsessed with how far I was.
That's the journey. And and what happens is when you live with an expectation that these one mores exist, the reticular activating system in your mind filters them into your awareness. I call it the matrix in the second chapter of the book. When you wake up believing, hey, I'm one decision away, I'm one meeting away, one relationship away, that's not hokey. Your mind begins to filter the people, places, and things into your awareness. You develop something called sensory acuity. You hear conversations you weren't hearing. We've all had that experience where we're on an airplane, I can't stop hearing these people over here. Or you walk in a loud room, but you can hear your own name auditorily over all the other names in the room. That's because it's important to you and it matters. You see things. And so when something becomes important to you and you believe it to be true, the RAS goes to proving it for you. And where I learned this, ironically, I talk about it in the book, is my father was an alcoholic. and had tried to get sober many, many times. And I'll never forget it, Jay. We were driving to a baseball game of mine. My dad started crying. I'd never seen my dad cry before. And he pulls the car over, and he still isn't looking at me, but he's crying, and he says, Eddie, and then he turns to me and he goes, I'm going to try to get sober. And I'll never forget this, brother. He goes, one more time.
Wow.
And I said, really, Daddy? He goes, I'm going to give it one more try. And I said to him, I said, why would this be any different this time? And he said, never said this to me before. He goes, because I love you, and you deserve a father you can be proud of, and you can't be proud of me right now. And I think every great thing we do in life is one away, but it's also born from love. To talk about your book, when you love people or you love something so deeply, if that love is greater than what the obstacles might be, now you got a shot to do it. Then my dad gets sober. He comes home from rehab. I say, Daddy, are you never going to drink again? And he said, I can't promise you that. I can promise you I'm not going to drink for one more day at a time.
Wow.
And he lasted the rest of his life stacking those one more days up. And so I know the power of one more. And Jay, the other thing, I also know humans can change. I watched my hero do it. I watched my dad live my first 15 years. Saw him in a lot of fights.
Wow.
A lot of lying, a lot of difficult times. And then I saw this man transform. And in life, we're most qualified to help the person we used to be. And what we think in life, and I hope everybody gets this, we think the things we're most ashamed of, embarrassed by, our divorce, our bankruptcy, or maybe we've just always been average and ordinary. This disqualifies me from being successful and happy. What if that's not true? What if the hardest things of your life are the very things that qualify you? I'll give you an example. You know how my dad got sober? Somebody helped him. My dad was going to take his life or lose his family, and I didn't know who it was till months ago. Some precious human being whom I didn't know. In my dad's darkest hour of his life, Jay said, I'll help you. I'll help you. Little did that person know I'd be his son, and I'd help millions of people, and I'd be on Jay Shetty's show, and we both help millions of people. And the more ironic thing that this person helped my dad is what qualified them to help my dad. They were a drunk. They were an alcoholic. They at one time were a drug addict. They at one time were lying and stealing and living in the shadows. The very thing that person probably figured, that disqualifies me from having a successful life, was the one thing that did qualify them to help my dad. So if you're listening to this and you've had something you're ashamed of, or a failure or a setback, you're most qualified to help the people you used to be. And that person, that alcoholism they suffered with their drug addiction, helped my dad live those one more days forever.
That is the best explanation I've heard of how pain turns into purpose.
That's right.
The thing that brought you down, that broke you down, that made you feel like you were losing everything,
That's right.
gave you back everything when you used that to serve the people that were struggling with it.
And then there's a purpose. And you know, if you can survive the temporary pain in your life, and all pain is temporary. I watched my father pass away last year. He was in tremendous pain. Even our bodies are temporary. Only our souls are permanent. If you can survive the temporary, on the other side of temporary pain, you meet another version of yourself, another insight about yourself. And that's why it's so important to grow as a person, because the more we grow and become a new person, we can help those that used to be like us. And that's why you and I are so addicted to growing and learning, and we're curious, because if you used to be a broken person and you no longer are quite as broken, you can help broken people. If you used to be broke financially and you no longer are, you can help people. Whatever you do for a living, at one time you didn't know about it, and now you do. You can help those who need to know about it. And so you're immensely qualified if you understand the power of doing one more.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Tell me about, so let's say, and you probably come up against this all the time. Sure. A lot of the people say, okay, I'm going to practice that. I'm with you, Ed. I love you and Jay. I'm listening, and I go, yes, I'm going to practice the power of one more. Now, what I find, and this is why you're so great at teaching this, because you're not teaching it as a gimmick, a glitch, or like a little affirmation. This is like real, it makes sense, like it works. People get so tied to the result that when they try it the next day and the sales meeting doesn't go their way, or the pitch doesn't go their way, they go, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Why didn't it work? And how should we respond when we fail or get rejected the next day?
Well, it didn't work because you're so attached to the outcome. I coach a lot of athletes. I know you do as well. And one of the things that's a really nuanced thing in life, it's great to have goals. You should have goals. I want to do this or that. But in the moment of execution, you have to separate from outcome in the moment that you're executing and just be present and exist. I talk about this in the book. Here's what I would say. If you're going to win long term, 95% of people have an operating system in their mind where they operate out of history and memory.
I like that.
And about 5% of humans operate out of vision and imagination. So the reason we're so much happier, I believe, when we're children is we have no history and memory. So we operate out of imagination and dreams and vision. But at some age, some people it's 5 years old, some it's 8, some it's 18, some it's 28. They create a history. And that history then becomes the operating system. So even if they take on a new behavior or tactic, they're operating out of a pattern of thought and belief that's historic and memory-based. And so the number one thing I would say is begin to operate out of your imagination again, out of your vision again. Create from that place. If you create from that place, now you're not tied to the result in that moment. You're giving yourself space to imagine and create something new in your life.
That I've never heard that in that language, man. That is so powerful.
Thank you.
You're so right about as kids how we don't have any memory or history, so we don't have any blocks, we don't have any limits.
And begin to listen to the people around you. People say, hey, you're the product of who you hang around. How do I know if they serve me or not? Here's one way to just deduce this, because they could be beautiful people who care about you, and they might even support you. But when you're with them, what are you ever have those friends you're with them, you're like, you remember when, you remember that party, remember that thing? Yeah. And if your friends are constantly bringing you to the filtration system of memory and history all the time, think this through. How often are those friends saying, hey, what are you working on now? Where are you going? What's your vision? What do you want to create? And maybe that sounds hokey, but you and I have some of both our friends have the most amazing histories, and you can't get them to talk about them.
No.
You have to work, because what are they still doing? Yeah. They're talking about now and where they're going. Yeah. Their viewpoint in their life is being present and having a vision for the future.
Yeah.
A formula for misery, a formula for lack of creativity, lack of productivity is constantly being history and memory.
Yeah.
Even if it's good, it doesn't serve us. And for most of us, it's not good. And we keep living from it or trying to move away from it. Create a new future. Don't move away from the past. Create a brilliant, imaginative, curious, vibrant vision for your life.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, we're always trying to create the same past.
Yes.
As opposed to a new future.
A new future.
And I find that what's really interesting about that, all the studies show that nostalgia makes us believe that the past was more phenomenal than it actually was. If you remember that party you went to at college, it's better in your memory than it actually was. If you actually could have gone back and remembered how you felt hungover and what you broke a bone or whatever happened, but now in your memory, it's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Right? So our memory also is slightly warped of the past.
No question.
It can make things feel much better or much worse sometimes.
No question.
But what's really coming out for me right now is this idea that it's something you said a couple of moments ago, and it sparked a thought for me. I remembered a story that Vanessa Bryant told about Kobe Bryant after he passed away. I was fortunate enough to interview him around 3 months before his tragic passing. And she told this story, and she said that Kobe would play through every injury. He would play through every pain. He would play through everything, even when the doctors and his coaches would say, stop playing. And she asked him, she said once, why he still plays, right? Again, going back to our curiosity, not assuming you know your partner. She asked him, why do you still play? And this is just her and him. There's no cameras, she's telling this story, but at the time it was just them two. He said it's because there's someone who's paid for a ticket today. They saved up. And this is the only time they're ever going to be able to come. Maybe a dad's brought his kid. Maybe someone's come to the game. They're a lifelong fan. And they came today. And today's the only day they're going to get to see me. And if I say I'm injured, they won't get to see me.
So awesome.
So I'm going to play so that person,
that one person,
gets to see me play. And then he goes and wins.
Yes.
And it's like, that's love.
That's
right?
love.
That's what you were saying.
Love for something is in the present moment also, right? Wow. Love is not just for the past. And it's funny how important one day is, man. When my dad got sick, my dad got cancer. When he first got sick, he goes, hey, my dad was a dude. He goes, look, I'll fight this one time. Okay, I'll do your little chemo and your surgery, but I'm not going to pour poison into my body. I'm not going to lose my hair. I'm not going to deteriorate. I'll give this thing a shot once. If it doesn't work, I'm out. That led to 8 years of him fighting it.
Wow.
Chemo, radiation, proton therapy, surgery, chemo, experimental chemo. And he did lose his hair and he was in pain. And I'd say to my dad, Dad, you're suffering so much. You said you wouldn't suffer. He said, no, Eddie, I'm in pain, but I'm not suffering. I choose not to suffer. And I'm not suffering because I get to see my grandkids again. And I said, Dad, why are you doing this? And he said, you only understand the power of one day when you're threatened with never having another one. And I'll do anything for one more day. Get to be with you one more time. Give your mom a kiss one more time. Maybe I'll see one of my granddaughters get married. And he goes, I'll do anything for one more day. The beautiful thing is I was actually with Kobe a week before he passed away. We were in the same gym. Our daughters played volleyball. And ironically, that day, I watched Kobe walk out of the gym. There was only a couple dads left. It was late at night. He stayed and I stayed. And he had his youngest daughter in his arm and he was rubbing his other daughter's back. And I remember taking note of it because I was with Bella at the other end of the gym. And I remember thinking, I don't hug Bella enough. I need to hug. No joke, bro. It's in the book. I went, I got to hug Bella one more time every day. Not just once a day, plus one more time every day. My daughter's going to get extra hugs because Kobe does that. What if I could have said to Kobe when he got in his car, Kobe, you have one more week, brother. Tell those that you love them. Get it right. Whoever matters to you, make it right. Call your dad, make it right. Call your mom, call your family. What if the day before you could have said, Kobe, you have one day left. And my dad, same thing. I was with my dad when he had 1 day left. I was with my dad when he had 1 hour left. I was with my dad when he had one breath left. And when we begin to think of our life that way, the power of right now and having one more moment and one more minute is so beautiful. It's so blessed. It's so big. It's so amazing. Why would we spend that minute in history? Why would we spend that minute in the past when we could be fully present in creating the future? And so, I think most people think, Jay, everyone else is going to die. I think they just, I'm not going to die. Or they go, I'll get around to being happy. I'll get around to making my masterpiece of my life. I'll get around to my dreams. I'm going to get around to fixing this relationship that's broken. I'm going to get around to feeling those emotions. And then it's another day and another day. And they keep it in the distance until there are no more days. And I don't care if you're 18 years old listening to this, 28 or 48. We don't know if we have one more day or 100 more days or 1,000 more days. But we know this, there'll eventually be a time where we don't have any more days. And so why would we spend the ones that are coming looking at the past? And so my dad really taught me those lessons in watching him pass away. And that's why I have a whole thing in there of how to get 21 days a week, run mini days. I get 21 days a week. We still measure time, bro, like it's 1900. Think about 1900. Yeah. If I wanted to get you a note, I'd have to write a letter out, stick it on the back of a horse's butt in 1850. 30 days later, you get it. That was a 24-hour day. Now I can text you in 2 seconds. We measure time the same way. Yeah. So I teach you how to change your time so that you can make that day its maximum bliss, its maximum productivity.
What's one more that you're working on right now?
Right now, it's an interesting season of my life. I have a TV show that I did with NBC that's called Change that I think is, has a chance of getting picked up. But my one more that I'm working on right now for me in my life is my peace. And so there's this guy, Jay Shetty, that's a friend of mine that introduced me and my family to meditation. And I'm giving myself the gift I don't just do it in the morning now. I've given myself the gift of one more time every single day of just emptying my mind and trying to be fully present. And it's been work for me. I've got that busy type of a mind, but I have found that my peace in my life, most of us, Jay, have all these goals of things we want to do, and they're wonderful. And I believe in doing that. I think standards are more important than goals because, and I teach you in this in the book, how to set the standards that'll get those goals. But we really don't want the jet. We don't want the hit song. We don't want the amazing relationship. We don't want the $1 million. We want how we think it'll make us feel. And what if we began to become more intentional and outcome oriented about the things we feel in our life? And it took me a while, but now that I'm older, when I feel strong, when I feel blissful, when I feel peaceful, is when I produce the physical things that I want, not the other way around. Oof. And so my one mores are more emotional focused. Most of us, then I'll come up for air here, have an emotional home. There's 3 or 4 or 5 emotions we experience on a regular basis. I write about it in the book. And no matter what happens, we find a way, even if they don't serve us, to get those emotions. If your emotional home is fear, anxiety, worry, depression, anger, you find a way every week to get that emotion. But what if that emotional home could become bliss and peace and joy and creativity and ecstasy? And so I'm working on one more beautiful emotion for my emotional home, and for me, it's peace.
I love that. I love that answer, man. It's good to hear about what you've been saying. Like, we're not living in the past, and you're like in the present. But to have you answer that question, that peace is your presence. Like, that's what you're looking for.
Right
like,
now.
that's the present, and it shows that you're using this. Like, it works. You're doing it time and time again. And I love what you said. It moves from the physical things into the subtle, into the emotional, into the deeper. I think that's so profound. What was that one more that if you didn't do it, you wouldn't be here today? What was one of those ones that like that was the one that convinced me, apart from obviously your father, that you were like, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be Ed Mylett today. I wouldn't be maxed out life.
The first business I built was a financial business, and I had some success, Jay, like a lot of people do in life. And then it went backwards. And sometimes when you get up the flagpole just a little bit and you come back down, that's an emotional difficulty. It could be a relationship that was good that's gone, or maybe you saved some money, it's gone. Maybe you lost a bunch of weight and got fit and you gained it back. For me, it was my business. And I called my dad. He was a pretty wise guy now that he was sober. And because I could tell you, man, I'd do one more rep in the gym. I haven't done 10 reps on a bench press in 30 years. I've done 10 plus one more a lot, though. I haven't done 45 minutes on a treadmill, but I've done 45 plus one more minute. 10 contacts a day? Never. 10 plus one more. But the biggest one more was actually something else. I called my dad and I said, hey, Dad, it's not going. The business is crashing. And I'm running out of money. Our power was turned off. Our water was turned off, Jay. I had to take my wife every morning. We'd lost our house. We're living in an apartment now. Then the water got turned off. You can't cook. You can't bathe. There was a apartment building. We had an outdoor shower at the swimming pool. And we were newlyweds. And I'd have to get up every morning, walk down there, and I'd hold a towel up while my wife took her shower every day outdoors and brush her teeth. And then she'd switch and hold the towel up for me. And I'd walk back up to the apartment, and I was so emasculated, so ashamed, so embarrassed. And I was living a nightmare, selling a dream to everybody every day. We can do this. A lot of entrepreneurs or people can relate in their life. And anyway, I called my dad that night, and I said, I think I need to pack it in. I need to go get a job. And this success thing is not... It's not for people like us. And my dad goes, Eddie, you don't have to decide you're never going to quit. He goes, just don't quit for one more day. See how you feel tomorrow. I go, Dad. He goes, just don't do it for one more day. And I got up the next day and I still wanted to quit, but not quite as much. And then I went one more day. And I found myself about 30 days later, I didn't want to quit anymore. And thank God the one more I did was I went one more day without quitting. And I'm so grateful I didn't quit on my dream.
Oh, Ed, wow, that is like, oh my gosh, man. Like, everything you're just dropping right now, I'm just like, I hope everyone is taking notes. If you haven't been taking notes, I want you to take a screenshot right now of where we're at right now, because that's what you're going to have to listen to again. So take a screenshot, share it, tell everyone to go to this segment, listen to that over again, because I think what I'm hearing, is that this is a lifestyle. Like, this is a mindset. It's a lifestyle. It's an everyday, every moment way to live. This isn't just in the big business you're building. This is me telling my wife I love her one more time. This is me making sure I message my mom one more time. It's me making sure that when I'm sitting here with you, I'm always going to have to ask you one more question because you keep giving so much. No, but you keep giving so. Well, that's what you just said. It will never end. I think if people feel like they tried a lot and then they start building up resentment and like pain and bitterness towards that path. And a lot of people also that I know, they just think that there are some people who are meant to be.
I agree with this.
And then there are some people that are not meant to be.
That's correct.
And they carry that with them. And it comes from this like, oh yeah, you were meant to be this, or that person was meant to have it. But for me, this is where, and I heard that kind of come up in what you were saying to your dad, like, it doesn't happen to people like us. how does this principle apply to someone who's in that
Brother,
space?
best question ever. Because I grew up with you have an alcoholic dad or a drug addict, or maybe you come from divorce, or maybe your parents just didn't love you enough, whatever it was, didn't tell you they loved you enough. It's hard to have self-confidence. Yeah. I was a little guy, I got bullied in school, and and even at this age now, bro, I if I'm being completely honest, self-confidence, we all teach that it's, part of keeping the promises you make to yourself. But what if you raise the standard a little higher? You keep the promises you make to yourself, plus one more. Because for me, self-confidence didn't come easy. I think in life, ultimately you're gonna get what you believe you deserve. And if you're wired like me, I didn't think I deserved a lot. I didn't even have a dad who could stop drinking, right? I wasn't 6'4". I don't have an incredibly high IQ. There's nothing really that impressive about me, nor were people very impressed with me most of my life. So that was my pattern. That was my history. That was my memory. And so I could wait around until I developed tremendous self-confidence, or I could begin to do things every day that were small. They're not major. And over time, when I did those one more calls, that one more meeting, that one more book I read, that one more podcast, not only am I doing more reps, so the likelihood of me being successful is bigger, but I started to convince myself I'm doing things other people aren't willing to do. Maybe I deserve things other people aren't going to get. And slowly but surely, I started to convince myself I did deserve it based on what I was doing, not necessarily the caliber of my talent.
Yeah.
And that was the difference.
Yeah, there's a thought I've been having recently, and it's that comfort creates self-care, but discomfort creates self-respect.
Ooh, boy, I love
right?
that.
Like, it's what you're
that.
saying.
I love that.
The one more discomfort every day,
Yes.
that's where self-respect comes from.
Yes.
You don't...
Great term.
You don't start to trust yourself or build self-esteem or believe in yourself because you just say it to yourself. Amen. It's coming, what you just said. You go out there and take one more meeting and see what you learn. Yes. You go out there and take one more risk, one more discomfort.
And I guarantee you, if you have a successful or happy friend, how you determine that, and you ask them this, they'd tell you that we're right. Yeah. They would tell you, gosh, that's right. Yeah. It's right. And the difference between winning and losing, happiness and sadness, is so small, it's almost scary to talk about. But the good news is I think I kind of know what it is, and it's this one more.
Absolutely. The people that I know that are the most successful and happy have more uncomfortable conversations.
Agreed.
They have more uncomfortable days. They have more discomfort in their lives.
Yes, totally agree with that.
But selected discomfort. But one of the other things that I'm asking from now, I'm like going into like the people that I know that I'm thinking about, I can see their faces and I want them to know that I'm asking for them. A lot of the time, one more in the wrong direction.
That's right.
Can also be really misguiding. Sometimes people, and I know you're a person of faith too, and so we can touch on this. Sometimes we're climbing the mountain and we keep doing one more, but we're actually going further away from who we are, who we want to be, our faith, our partners, right? We know people who've built multi-billion-dollar companies but lost their kids.
That's right.
Or they've become famous and rich, but their partner cheated on them, or like really painful stuff. And people who didn't do all of that, and that's happened too. Sure. Like it's both ways. How does one use one more and make sure it's in the right direction?
Such a great question. I'm doing this now regularly because I've made some of those mistakes and what I do is I check in with myself one more time, meaning it's important to ask yourself, what matters to me now? See, if we had this conversation 20 years ago, the things that mattered to me then are so different than what matter to me now. But a lot of us keep operating out of what used to. Maybe you've achieved or are pursuing a dream, and it's really, truly no longer your dream. It's no longer your dream. It's when I was young, listen, if we were going to do a podcast, you say, hey, I need you on the show. People are going to love you. You're going to get recognition. You're going to get all this acknowledgement. And that would have been my hot button, my need. I believe in the 6 human needs. My need was significance and recognition. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's wonderful. And so that's the button to get me to move would be significance, recognition. Well, I've been blessed the last 30 years or so of my life to have a beautiful abundance of significance and recognition. It's no longer what fills me. Now you get me to do an interview, you go, hey, I really think we could help some people. My big button in my life now is contribution. There was another stage in my life, it's still there, but hey, if you go there, you'll grow. I still want to grow, but I know me now. Right now, I'm in a season of my life that's contribution. It's giving. It's what fills my heart. And I think it's checking in with yourself one more time. What matters to me now? What do I want now? What's important to me now? What season? Maybe you're in a season where you need to rest. Maybe your spirit and everything about you is telling you, hey, it's time to feed you again. It's time to recharge. If that's the season, then answer that call. Don't play out of a past playbook. And so for me, that's the season I'm in now. And I'm sure that in 5 or 8 more years, there'll be something else. But I regularly, on a monthly basis, you recommend it in your book so beautifully about your relationship, checking in. You have these strategies you teach about weekly and monthly and quarterly and yearly with your partner of checking in with them. I also recommend you check in with yourself and what matters to you now. And so for me, it's a matter of checking in now so that I don't lose my family in the pursuit of my business or lose me.
Yeah.
Lose me. Who am I anymore? And I've had times where I'm like, this doesn't feel like me anymore.
Yeah.
And I had at least the ability to at least acknowledge that and make a change.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up seasons because I feel like no one and on planet Earth, we don't have the power to change the season.
Yeah.
But you have the power to live the season well.
That's right.
You can either be right now it's been raining, right? Wherever we are. It's been like pouring down with rain. There's all this effort. You could carry an umbrella. Well, you can tell how I'm dressed.
Right.
I'm definitely not dressed in my usual gear.
Right.
Because I'm dressed for the rain. I'm prepared.
Yes.
Because that's all I can do. I can't make the rain switch off. I can't stop it, right? Like I can't do that.
Yeah.
And so I love hearing that you're just learning how to thrive in the season. And so if your season's telling you to rest, you can't force the season. And you have to live it through. You have to experience it.
I think you have to remember one thing, man. I think it's just easy as a person to forget this. And I just would love to say this because you have such an amazing reach. Each of you and I included, we were born to do something great with our life.
There's a couple things that came up for me there. Your birthday was rather recent, but your mom gave you your dad's cufflinks.
Yeah.
And when you talk about living in the past, there are elements that are empowering to us, and there are elements that are the things that hold us back.
Yeah.
When you put your dad's cufflinks on, like what are the stories? How does it empower you, or does it?
Well, no, big time. That's such a great question. So my dad's the centerpiece of my life. You know this, but I talk about it in the book. I was raised by an alcoholic. My dad, my first 15 years of my life, lived a not great life. And the reason I believe humans can change so much is I watched my hero do it. My dad then, for like the 11 millionth time, tried to get sober one more time, one more try. And there was these themes in his life of one more. So he finally got sober. And it was a very emotional thing I write about in the book. And then when he got sober, I said, Daddy, are you gonna stay sober forever? And he said, I don't know, I'm gonna stay sober for one more day at a time. And I've used that lesson a lot when I wanted to quit businesses. I just I'm not gonna quit for one more day. I'm gonna quit for one more day. And there were all these one mores in my dad's life where he helped one more person get sober. And so only my dad, by the way, my dad never again celebrated. I'm born April 27th. My dad was born April 11th. And in between those two, my dad got sober. My dad got sober on 420, which is hilarious, right? On 420. Only my dad would get sober on 420. But the next 35 years, my dad only celebrated that birthday. And so when I put those cufflinks on that my mom gave me, it makes me emotional to say, but I kind of step into that person who gives things one more try. Who I know in your life, the premise of the book's really simple. My dad always told me this. It's not, the Bible says, where there's no vision, the people will perish.
Right.
But if you dig deeper, most of us have a vision. Like, would we rather be happy or sad? What's your vision? Happy. You want to be rich or poor? You want a jet or commercial, right? You want a beautiful home like this, or you want to live in an apartment the rest of your life? Do you want to help a bunch of people and contribute, or make no difference in the world? So most people have a vision. Their issue is depth perception. They think they're further away all the time. And so because they think it's far away, they act in accordance with that belief system, and they always keep those dreams and visions that far away from them. But what if the truth is you're not that far away? What if the truth is you're one decision away from changing your life like my dad was? What if you're one relationship, one meeting, one podcast, one interview, one book, one thought, one new emotion? What if you were that far away from changing your life? Then life would look a lot different. Then you'd begin to look for those one mores everywhere. And so when I put those cufflinks on, I have a tendency to look for those one mores more than I do when I don't.
Ah, so good. Okay.
Yeah.
So I love getting practical.
Yeah.
So somebody's listening
Yep.
and they're like, okay, so Ed says depth perception, the thing I want, is farther than what I think is possible, at least in immediacy. And so I act in accordance to that, which in perpetuity pushes it farther away.
Keeps it there.
So then for somebody who's listening, like, okay, let me see if this guy is really talking the talk. I have a vision for X. What are the decisions? What am I looking for when you say one more decision,
Great
one
question.
more thing? Like, what? Give me the nitty gritty.
That's the one thing about this book. If I have a criticism of my own book, it would be that it's heavy. It is loaded with like detailed stuff. So the second chapter of the book's called The Matrix. And I love The Matrix because Neo was the one, which we can talk about. But what the Matrix really means for me is there's a part of your brain, if we're going to be really detailed, called the reticular activating system.
Amen.
It's located in the prefrontal cortex of your brain. It is the filter that reveals the world to you. Only the things that matter most to you are revealed by this filter. Perfect example is, I just bought a Tesla. I like what Musk is doing, right? So I told my team, give me a Tesla. So I get this, I drove it here today. I get a Tesla. All of a sudden, Jasmine, I'm on the road.
I mean, people are listening right now. I just want to take a moment. So I told my team to get me a Tesla. This right here, I want you to know, this is all of a sudden I'm like, that's possible? So I'm going to behave as if I am one day away from telling my team, give me the Tesla.
And by the way, because you believe that, you're much closer. By the way, I've also been in a point in my life where I'm like, I have no team to tell anything to, and my Honda CRX
100%.
just had the passenger seat stolen out of it, right? So I've been in both places, believe me. And that's probably why it's so clear to me. But all of a sudden, I'm on the road. I see freaking Teslas everywhere now. I mean, like literally everywhere. 3 lanes over, other side of the freeway. Babe, white Tesla. Babe, red Tesla. Babe. They're everywhere. They were always there. Why do I see them now? I see them now because they've been programmed into my RAS as important to me. So what happens is, in life, if you can begin to make your ambitions, your goals, your visions, those decisions, those relationships, your Teslas, all of a sudden they're revealed. They've always been there. This is the thing people don't understand. There's law of attraction, blah, blah, blah. These things have always been there, but you're not hearing them. You're not seeing them. You're not feeling them because your RAS is programmed to worry about the things you're stressed about, your current problem in front of you, the immediate thing you have to do. So how do you do it? You have to do it by repeated, clear visualizations, because your mind moves towards what it's most familiar with. Humans are already great at this. They just visualize the stuff they're worried about. They just visualize the tasks they have to do. They don't take control of their imagination and their RAS. And I teach you in the book how to slow visualizations down, how to do them. It's not complicated. You can do it in 3 or 4 minutes, and it becomes repetitive. It becomes a muscle. It's why, like, when you walk in a room, there could be 300 people in a room. If someone says quietly the name Jasmine, you hear it auditorily over all the other voices. Everybody's this way because it's in your RAS. So these things have always been there. And in the Matrix, they slow it down. What happens when you start to program your Matrix is your life begins to slow down and you start to see these things. I just played golf. This is crazy. With a guy about 3 weeks ago, they go, hey, I want you to meet this dude. Your net worths are similar. So I get on the first tee and the guy's like, oh man, I'm a fan of yours. I can't wait to hear about you. I go, that's not how I work, bro. I already know about me. We're going to talk about you today. Right? I'm not talking about me. And so I go, tell me your story. He took about one decision away. This blew my mind. He goes, well, my story's really quick. He goes, 1986, I loaned a guy $50,000. And he goes, my best friend loaned the same guy 50 grand. A week later, my best friend said, please give me the money back. The guy returned the money. I let the loan go. It turned into $750 million. I said, dude, stop. Who'd you loan that money to? Jeff Bezos.
Whoa.
I went, you gotta be freaking kidding me. And I said, wait a minute, you really were one decision, one relationship, one loan away from totally changing your life. Now that's extreme. I don't have that story. But I'm a series of small one mores over my life that have transformed me to the point where I'm addicted to it now. And here's the hook, and then I'll come up for air. Most of these things are painful. And on the other side of pain, Napoleon Hill says, you get introduced to your other self. If you can survive the temporary. This is even good for you right now as you're building your business and you're doing so great, right? Can you survive the temporary? Most people make permanent decisions on temporary conditions, especially entrepreneurs. They do it all the time. And the truth is, if you can survive the temporary and get to the other side of it, there's a gift revealed to you. I'll give you the big one. You opened the interview by saying to me that one of my gifts, and I only have 2 or 3. I've made hundreds of millions of dollars with very limited skills. It's just the truth. But I do have 2 or 3. So does everybody that are unique to them. One of them is what you said. I am good at reading people and being present and listening closely. What's that come from? Let me tell you what it comes from. I'm the child of an alcoholic. And so when I was 5 years old, I had 3 sisters and a mom. I had to know what dad was coming through that front door at 5.
Right.
And so that man would come through that front door, and this little boy, me, I would have to read my daddy. Is this drunk dad? Is this Thai little loose? Is his hair messed up? Is he walking a certain way? Is he a little slower? And if it's drunk dad, I got to get my sisters upstairs. I'm going to tell my mom to go take a shower. And then I'm going to grab my dad's hand at 5, and I'm going to do the other thing I'm good at. I'm going to talk to him. And I'm going to change his state. I'm going to tell him how good I did at school that day. And I'm going to move him around, and I'm going to talk to him. If it was sober dad, we'd just go play baseball in the backyard and have a great time. But I learned to read people because of a tragedy in my life. A tragedy. One of the hardest, painful things of my life gave me one of the greatest skills I have that's made me tons of money and helped millions of people. So most of these things that you want in your life are hidden behind temporary pain.
Okay. So for the perpetual cynic and skeptic and the people who I love those who challenge.
So do I.
Somebody's listening and they say it is a skill that Ed Mylett has honed, drilled in, that now he sees one more. It is the white Tesla. But go back to the Ed when you were living a much simpler life, when somebody did steal the passenger's seat out of your Honda Civic. Can you give us an example of one more thing that you did that, like, all of a sudden it started opening your eyes to what was that potential?
Yeah, we had I got so broke, so I was doing okay. A lot of entrepreneurs, I was doing all right, and then like things went bad. That's entrepreneurship, right? You take off, then you crash. You take off, then you crash.
You need to talk about that, just got the nutshell version of, you were doing okay. What business was this? Like,
I had a real estate business and a financial business, and so I had done well, and then the market crashed, and then I had a foreclosure, and then I came out one morning and Christiana's car was stolen. I'm like, I can't take this anymore. Except when I got back into the apartment, turns out it wasn't stolen, it was repoed, right? And then we had our power turned off, and then that's bad, but then the worst is we had the water turned off. And so she had to go get a job while I was an entrepreneur, and the water turned off. You can't cook, you can't bathe. I would have to get up every morning with my new bride, walk down our apartment stairs after we had already owned a house that we lost, hold a towel up, and we would go to the pool at the apartment complex. There was a shower there, outdoors. And I'd hold a towel up while my new wife would take a shower and brush her teeth. And then we would switch. I get emotional today about it. And I would hold the towel up. She would hold it up for me. And I remember we would just climb back up those stairs, and I'm living a nightmare. And I got to go out into the world and sell a dream. And I decided to go get a job.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I was living a nightmare, and I had to go and sell a dream.
Yeah.
Oh, if that's not the entrepreneur struggle.
It is the entrepreneur struggle, and I still sold the dream. I operated out of my vision and my imagination, not my memory and my history. And so this is so critical. But here's what happened. It's crazy. Here's one more decision I made. I actually went to surrender. I was going to quit. My brother-in-law, who worked for LA Cellular at the time, was doing really well. He was making like $200 grand a year.
What was he doing for LA Cellular?
Sales manager. Okay. And so, long story short, I'll make it really quick. He was out on Victoria Beach with my sister visiting. So I met him down there. I said, hey, can we take a walk? And my intention on that walk when I took him was to quit and to ask him for this job. And I was so down. And we had no water. They don't know this, but like, I'm worried about eating. And I haven't told this ever. I don't know why I'm doing this today. We're walking, because it's you. We're walking, we get like about 50 yards. He's like, so what, bro? And I go to say, can you give me a job? I go to say that, except I go, how long are you gonna stay at that crappy job, bro? He goes, what? I go, you need to come into business with me. You need to come live the dream, dude. I'm gonna build something big. I've got these plans. Here's what I'm gonna do. This, and this, and it's gonna be amazing. I'm gonna be worth millions of dollars. I'm gonna live on this beach someday, bro. You gotta come do this with me. And as I'm saying, I'm like, what? Like, I had intended, but I couldn't quit. And somehow that imagination came out of me. I swear to you, Jasmine, he goes, I don't know, bro. I need to think about it. I go, you need to think about it. I'll give you a day. He quit that job 2 days later and came to work with me. He still works on that financial company to this day. He's made millions of dollars. I've made millions of dollars. That one moment of decision, walking that beach with him, and he'll hear this, we haven't talked about this in years, altered my life, altered his life. And I was just ready to go, I'm out. I was literally on the walk to raise my hands, and something in me said, one more time. And everything shifted there.
So I get asked all the time, how did I get so much attention on social media, in my businesses, email list, etc.? I can tell you straight up, it's been Constant Contact. If you don't know who Constant Contact is, you need to know about these guys. Constant Contact's award-winning marketing platform has helped millions of small businesses, mine being one of them, stand out stay on top of mind, and see big results fast. They've got an easy way to promote your business with powerful tools like email, SMS marketing, social media posting, and they even do events management, what they've done for me in the past as well. You're going to reach new audiences, you're going to grow your customer list big time, and communicate more effectively to sell more, raise more, and grow fast on social media. So get going and start growing your business today with a free trial at ConstantContact.com. Just go to ConstantContact.com right now. Constant Contact, helping the small stand tall. ConstantContact.com.
In my eyes, you've had a tremendously successful career. Same with you. You're very proud of your career. Everybody should be. But I feel like there's this next chapter that's coming of Ed Mylett that's this older, wiser, this guy who you've been through. I mean, losing a family member, especially somebody who was
really important to me. My
very
favorite
important to you. I mean, your father shaped your life.
He did.
And he did it in a way that was really hard in the beginning as an alcoholic.
Yeah.
You grew up with an alcoholic father. My partners and some of my friends grew up with alcoholic fathers, and it's not an easy life.
Can I tell you the good part? Taking the meeting, not to interrupt you, but and by the way, I want to say one thing to you. My wife knew you were coming today, and I've talked about you many times, but I wanted to tell her more about you. She's like, tell me more about him. I swear to you on our friendship, because you just said it. I said, here's how he's done so far. I said, I have this sense about this dude that there's like massive leap about to happen for him in his life. I have this sense about him. And she goes, I'm going to even tell you why, if you don't mind. I said, there's a kindness and a goodness in this dude that I have not felt from other people that I've been around. And I said, actually, we've only been around like each other virtually.
Right.
And I said, he's like a massive winner, and he wants to really serve, and he's uniquely talented. He's got all these creative skills. He's good on camera. He's good in person. He's good behind the camera. He's got all this depth of character because of his faith.
You're making me blush. Thank you, Ed.
No, but I'm serious. I talked about this at breakfast with my wife this morning, and I said, I have a feeling about this guy. I'm serious, by the way. I said, I have a feeling about this guy. There's some massive calling for him, and it's not what he's doing currently. It's bigger.
You want to know the best part?
Yeah.
I feel the exact same thing.
Good.
And it's not arrogance. It's not cockiness. It's not.
No.
I tell my friends all the time some of these ambitions that I don't necessarily have, but I feel like I'm called to.
Yes.
I was given. I'm not a talented guy, man. I'm not good at sports. I can't sing. I can't dance. I can't do many things. But there's a few things that I can do really well, and I've learned how to take those strengths and take them to the masses, starting with my friends and my close circle, and start to bring those people with me along for this ride.
Yes.
And there's a lot smarter people out there than me. There's a lot more talented people out there than me, but there's very few people out there that have just the bullheaded stubbornness and the it's will, and it's this. I shouldn't believe in myself as much as I do, but I do, and I can't stop it.
Yeah. By the way, you just explained success. Everyone should just go back and rewind that. What you've done is you've taken the unique gifts you have that are unique to you, plus your experience, backed by this really deep belief in yourself and this overarching faith that something great's supposed to happen. And you just literally explained how to become successful.
Yeah.
And here's what's really weird for me. That's what I've done. And I don't have a lot of great talents. I'm not high IQ. In fact, we just did an IQ test. I'm 4th out of 4 in my house. True, I'm the 4th.
4 out of 4.
4 to 4, man. But I am 4th. So I got to tell you though, I do have like 2 really good skills, and I've made hundreds of millions of dollars with them. And here's what's ironic. It's because my dad was an alcoholic. And I want everybody to get this. Most of the great things in your life are going to come through some type of adversity.
Trial.
Here's what mine was. My dad, I had to figure out when that dude would come through the front door. I had 3 sisters and a mom. Which dad was it? And I'm a 5-year-old little boy, and I'd see my daddy walk through the door, and I would have to be present and read him. Really read him.
As a 5-year-old.
5-year-old. Is he drunk? Is his shirt buttoned the right way? Is his hair messed up? How's he walking? How's he talking? What's his physiology like? And if it was sober dad, we're gonna have dinner, go play catch in the backyard. If it's drunk dad, I gotta get my sisters upstairs.
Yeah.
I gotta have my mom go take a shower. And then the second thing kicks in. I gotta grab his hand and I gotta talk to him. And I have to change how he feels by speaking. Okay, bro, my only 2 big skills in life is I'm really good at reading people and being present and caring about them. I'm really good at it.
You are.
And I'm good at communicating and changing how they feel.
And I got both of those because my dad was an alcoholic. If my dad's not an alcoholic, I don't build those two skills as a young boy that I've used for 50 years now.
Those have been your
business
two
and
main building blocks.
They're my two big ones, and they come from that tragic thing in my life. And then my ability, my belief humans can change. My dad got sober and lived the best life of any man I've known.
Right.
The last 35 years of his life. So that's why I do what I do.
So your dad is a huge inspiration to you.
Yeah.
You lost him. Mm-hmm. Rather than turning that into a downward spiral,
right,
you turn that into something that's about to change the world.
Thanks, man.
Which is wild, because not a lot of people have the self-discipline to do that, which is what you talk about in the book is this was one more thing that you had to do. And it probably wasn't convenient, and it probably wasn't easy, and there's probably times where it wasn't fun. The publishing process is mind-numbing. It's just horrible. It's brutal.
Yep.
Have you ever read anything like this book?
No, every book I read, I don't mean this critically either. Most books in personal development are some derivative of Think and Grow Rich with like slightly different phraseology, like every single one. I don't want to do that. And by the way, I love Think and Grow Rich. I wanted one on what do I think, what do I do? What do I think, what do I do? And you put those things together. And then I'll just share with you, here's why I wrote it, bottom line. If you want to know the power of one more, it's when I take it from you. I take the ability to have one more from you, and now you realize how precious it is. So my dad, my favorite thing to do, bro, my dad did not care about money at all. In fact, my dad lived in Chino. My mom still lives in that house. My dad lived walking distance from my jet, and I've had 5 of them. He's never set foot on one of them. And I would say, Dad, let's fly to Hawaii, go play Hawaii. My dad would be like, why would I go all the way to Hawaii to play golf with my boy? We could just do it in Chino. I don't care about that. I care about my son. Never, ever cared about the money I made, anything like that. What kind of a man am I? What kind of a husband am I? What kind of a friend are you? These are the conversations I would have. My father could care less about any financial success at all. Wow. Never emphasized it. But my favorite thing to do was golf with my dad. Yeah. We're both not that good. It was 5 hours of being a foot from my best friend.
Yeah.
My dad. You'll be associating with me the whole time you read the book. Don't read this book like, I'm reading the words this guy wrote. Pretend I'm talking to you.
And that's one of my favorite parts about, I don't know if it's the first chapter or the foreword, but you say, I'm going to read it word for word. You were not born to be average or ordinary. You were born to do something great with your life. I know this about you.
Yeah.
Those are Ed's exact words.
Yep.
Ed, how the hell do you know that about me? How the hell do you know that about the people reading this book?
Because I have faith, and my faith informs me that we're all brothers and sisters of the same loving God. And so whatever DNA I have running through me, you can have running through you. And if one man can do something, another man can do it. And you're born with your own unique skills and giftedness, just like you described earlier, that are yours. Combined with your life experience makes you one of a kind. Here's one thing I want you to think about, bro. This is going to blow your mind. It just occurred to me after I wrote the book. My dad got sober. And that one decision changed my family forever. If my dad doesn't get sober, I'm probably not talking to you. And then it occurred to me after I wrote the book, I want everyone to hear this. This is super important. I woke up the other night and I woke my wife up. I woke Christine. I go, babe, someone helped my dad. She goes, what, honey? I said, someone helped my dad. I never thought about it before. Someone helped my dad get sober. She goes, oh my God. I said, I have no idea who they were. It's like an anonymous program. And I said, babe, do you know what qualified them to help my dad? She goes, no. I go, they were a drunk.
Yeah.
They were a mess. They were an alcoholic. Their mess qualified them to help my dad. This average, everyday human being whose life was a shambles at one point helped my dad change his entire life, which helped me, which changed his grandkids' life. You know what we call
that? Compounding interest.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Because you are now the fruits of those single small actions, those single one more steps that people took.
Yes.
One drunk helped another drunk. That drunk cleaned up his life.
Yep.
He inspired you, and now you inspire millions.
And that's exactly right. And what I want everyone to know that, bro, is like your mess doesn't disqualify you from helping other people or making your dreams come true. In fact, it's what qualifies you to make something great with your life. This thing you think that you fear about you or you're embarrassed by or not confident about or ashamed of, that may be the very thing that helps you change other people's lives. It may be one of your great gifts. And it sure was for my family. So I just had to tell you that because it's not in the book and it just occurred to me like a week ago.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
That's a wild middle of the night thought.
It is, man.
Because that's a heavy one.
It's a heavy one.
That's a big one.
It's a real one. I know we're going heavy today. Whatever. It's
Wait,
cool.
That's what we're here for, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I gotta tell you, Ed, it's an honor to be able to turn the tables on you because you are one of the world's best interviewers.
You're good too.
You could be on any broadcast network in the world, and you could kick Larry King's ass. You could just absolutely dominate because you have a way of reading people's body language. You don't step on people's words. You're able to feel what I'm saying. The empathy that I feel your empathy right now. It's like your heart is like shining at me. And even when I'm texting you. And so you have that ability, and it's just incredible that you've been able to turn it into words that are easy to digest.
Thank you.
That anybody, I'm serious, this book is heavy, but I feel like my 10-year-old daughter could probably start to chew through this.
I hope so. I think so.
And I'm going to teach her these things because my 10-year-old daughter is a miniature version of me.
Oh, yeah.
And if you think I'm doing great things, just wait till you see what Charlie does. And you feel the same way about Max and Bella, right? Is your daughter.
Yeah.
So there's another thing, and I think you actually, is there a chapter on the 24-hour day?
Yeah.
Was that in Max Out as well?
A little touched on there, really detailed.
It's one of my favorite things that you've ever talked about because I want to dive into that a little bit because it changed the way that I view life.
Me too.
Because how do we view life right now? 24/7, right?
Yep.
We got 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, and usually the work day is what? If you're working an average job, 8-9 hours a day.
Yeah.
Guys that are entrepreneurs are usually working 14-15 hours a day. You have learned how to turn one day into 3 days.
That's right. Yep.
How did you do that?
By the way, I'm just so proud of you. I'm just watching you, man. You're just so good. You're going to change the world, dude.
Thank you, Ed.
I told my wife that this morning. So having said that, I'll help you a little bit here. So the idea that there's 24 hours in a day is stupid. And it's antiquated and dated. So a 24-hour day was created when there was no electricity, when there was no internet, when there was no nothing. Yet most people still measure time the same way people did 250 years ago. How insane is that?
That's wild.
Right? And so most human beings are walking around oblivious to the fact that we can compress time frames now. Information is faster. There's actually cars and electricity and lights, and you don't have to send stuff by horse, and there's this thing called email now. And
you know what's
Google.
so funny? I'm sorry to cut you off. We were sitting downtown. We love tacos.
Me too.
I'm a connoisseur of tacos, and so anytime we land in SoCal, I Google whoever's got the best reviews. So we're sitting there eating tacos today, and I look up and I look over at my buddy Jason, and I say, how archaic are power lines? Power lines, you go downtown, anywhere in California, and there's just lines and wood poles everywhere. And we're stuck in these old ways that we're just stuck with, and nobody really knows why. I mean, maybe it's expensive to bury them and change them, but as you move into these newer communities, I guarantee you some of the houses that you have don't have power lines running to them.
You bet they don't. And by the way, it's super interesting you say that because we become so used to seeing them that they become invisible. And so if you were to ask somebody in Laguna Beach who's got this incredible ocean to look at, you do realize there's power lines blocking your view. They would actually say, I don't see them anymore. We become so oblivious to the dumb things that we do in life that we just unconsciously, like zombies, walk through them. And one of them is the way we manage time. So my first day is from 6 a.m. to noon. That's a day. You ever have a morning where you're like, I got more done this morning than I get all day or all week? That's because you compress time frames. So my first day is 6 a.m. to noon. That's a day. And in that day, I could have all fun. I could have faith. I could have family. I could have business. But it's a day. I measure the day in that window. What's important about that is around noon, this light bulb, this clock goes off in my head that goes, what did I just get done? What did I do? What do I need to be accountable for? What do I need to redouble my efforts on? What do I need to do more the second day? Second day is noon to 6 p.m. Some of those days, like Sundays, it's just straight faith and family for me. But in that day, I could do contacts, meetings, working out, you name it. But that's a day. And then the next day's from 6 p.m. to midnight. These days, now I got 3 days in a day. I got 21 in a week. I got 44 in a month or more. You tell me that you're going to compete against me when I get 44 days, by the way, let me do the math again for you. 21 days in a week, right? That's 84, by the way. 21 days in a week I get, and you get 7, and we stack that up over a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I'm going to smash you in fun, in happiness, in fitness, in success, in family. Because I get more days than you. And there's one other thing that happens. Because you treat time more preciously, you've bended time and manipulated it, other people take you more seriously.
Yeah.
Other people look at you as moving faster, talking faster, more valuable. What there is less of is more valuable. What's precious is more valuable. That's why diamonds are worth more than paper. So most people treat their days like paper instead of diamonds. But if you start having 6-hour days, all of a sudden time becomes precious. It becomes valuable to you and everybody around you. Your entire life will change. Sorry, my math was bad. Your entire life will change when you get 21 days a week. I promise you, it'll be a completely different existence. And by the way, after like about 6 real months of doing this, you're going to tell me, man, you know what, about noon every day, this thing goes off in my head that goes, what did I get done? What do I need to do now? How much fun did I have? Did I make sure I said my prayers? Did I make enough money? And it starts calibrating time completely differently, and you'll never go back to 24 hours.
Ed, I don't know if you realize what you've done, but you've taken something that has been linear for hundreds of years, which is the 24-hour clock, and you made it 3-dimensional.
Yeah. I know.
You really did. Now you have these blocks and these bubbles, and you have these areas where you can get in, dive in, do more. And you know the movie Groundhog's Day?
Yeah.
That movie stresses me out so bad because it's a reflection of what happens to
humans.
Middle-aged men as they go to start to work, or anybody. You get stuck in Groundhog's Day and you start doing the same thing over and over. And Groundhog's Day is an exaggeration of it, but I think a lot of people do live Groundhog's Day because they're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and they don't find a way to. I love the way that you don't make it, okay, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. I have to do this. It's no, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. is a day for me, and whatever I do in that day,
like any other day,
it's you're gonna flip flop things, move them around. If you want to go golf from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m., that's gonna be what you did in that day,
and I do it.
And that's the
Here's what's nuts. I had to move out of this storage unit. This is gonna date me like how old I am, but it's like an old storage unit because I bought that island. I'm like, all right, I'll take all my old stuff and dump it on this island. I had a bunch of Encyclopedia Britannicas in there. And these old encyclopedias, most of your audience won't even know what they are. Google what that is and realize that when I used to try to research something for school, I would have to go to an encyclopedia or drive down to a freaking library, find the book, open the book, write it all down by hand. Now my kids go, how to build a fort, how to do whatever, how does science work? They Google it and have it like that. And I'm gonna measure time the same way now that I did back then.
This is so funny you're saying
it's just ridiculous.
Literally yesterday, we did a video where we bought a bunch of storage units sight unseen, and we got in them, opened them up, and there were, when you buy storage units, you find all kinds of wild stuff. And we found a whole volume of, you ever heard of what's called the Book of Knowledge?
Yes.
And it's like volume A, B, C, and you go in there, and I opened one, and it's like, here's how tractors work. And then you go through, later in the book, and it's like, here's how the tides in the ocean work. You used to have to go through page by page by page to find this information.
Crazy.
And so if that's changed so quickly, if I can go to my phone now and figure out how tractors work in 30 seconds, why can't I do that with time and productivity and my family and my relationships?
You can and everything.
And the best part about this is the people who are going to benefit the most are the people who are closest to you. Mm-hmm. If you're a family man or you're a single mom, doesn't matter who you are, I believe, after going through your book, that if people start to do those one more things, those just that little inconvenience, that extra rep, whatever it is, that, and here's the thing, Ed, I'm not a big believer. This is why, Andy Frisella, good friend of ours. His program 75 Hard scares the living shit out of me.
Okay.
Because it's a lot at once. And some people need that shock to the system. I'm the type of person where I decided that if I want to feel better, I'm going to start drinking a little bit more water every day. And so I started easing into it, and everybody has different personality types. And so what I don't want people to think is, if you read this book, don't think I have to implement all 19 chapters at once. No. Take the principles that you're learning and say, that's one that really resonates with me. I'm going to implement that one now.
So here's another point that I think is it was so inspiring for me when I was just learning more about you. And that's how you always talk about actually stepping into your dream, right? The need to actually experience your dream. I remember I heard you tell a story about you and your wife, going to the Ritz-Carlton and just doing that for one day to just feel like it's like what it's like to have valet parking and things like that. Today, you have a private jet and that's insane. You know, you've elevated yourself to a point where, you know, barely anybody makes it to that point to be able to afford a private jet, you know? And so talk to us about the need to actually experience your dreams.
You should touch your dreams. And the reason is you belong in them. But you move towards what you're most familiar with in your life. So if you're familiar all the time with your current thoughts and your current life, you'll constantly keep moving towards it. So every once in a while, you got to go touch your dreams. So like you said, when I was up and coming, I would set contests up with myself. If I didn't hit them, I wouldn't do it. But I'd say, babe, if I make 10 sales this month and I make $8,000, let's take $500 and let's go down to the Ritz-Carlton on Saturday night. We'll get the cheapest room there, but I would touch the dream. And so I'd get there like a big shot. You know, I'd flip my keys to the valet. I never done that crap before. You know, hey, Mr. Mylett, they grab your bags. I used to be so cheap. I'm like, no, we got our bags because I don't want to give the bellman $4, you know. Now I'm like, no, you get my bag, man. You walk up, you check in. Hey, babe, let's get up into the room. You go get a massage, honey. I'm going to go play some golf. I'll meet you at the pool later. Let's have a bottle of wine. And so for one day, we would touch this dream. We'd sit there and go, babe, we're going to live like this all the time someday. We just take a taste. And then maybe 6 weeks later, we do it again. 8 weeks later, we go out to the La Quinta Resort, you know, do it again. And all of a sudden, over time, I'm like, I'm kind of familiar with the valet. I'm kind of familiar with the oceanfront. I'm kind of familiar with the golf course. And I'm like, we belong here. All of a sudden, the more familiar I became with it, then I start looking at the houses when I'm there, right? Then I start playing the golf a little bit different. And over time, I'm like, we belong here. Because I didn't grow up like that. We used to walk on the beach I live on right now. We go to the Ritz. I can walk to the Montage. That was the other place we would go after I got older. I walk right to the Montage for breakfast now. But we would come down this beach when we were kids. I say, babe, I'm going to get us a house on this beach someday when we be taking these walks. No idea how I was going to do it. She says, you are, honey? I'm like, someday, because we're the high school sweethearts. I'm like, yeah, someday we're going to do it. And when I come home, I'd say to my dad, I'd say, Dad, who are these people? Who are these people that are these? He goes, dude, I have no idea who these freaking people are. I've never met any of them. I've never met someone who lives oceanfront. Yeah. And then I figured it out. They're the one. They're the one. See, in the book, I have this chapter called The Matrix. I love The Matrix about your RAS, but the real reason I read about The Matrix is because Neo in The Matrix is the one. See, in every family, if you find a family that's wealthy or successful or happy, but you go all the way back in their lineage, at one point they weren't. And then the one shows up. The one in that family rises up, takes all the hits, fights for that family. I'm the one in my family. And they change that family forever. The world doesn't treat the Myletts like they used to. No one's got their thumb on my family anymore. We think different. We operate in the world different because the one showed up. The one. And if you're listening to this, you're the one in your family. You're the one. And over time of walking these beaches, over time of going to the Ritz-Carlton, I figured out I'm the freaking one. And I'm the one that's going to do it. Now I literally live on the beach. It's one, on an island. It's about an island that's 100 acres. You said I have a jet. I'll just be honest with you, I had 5 jets. I've owned 5 jets in my life. And so you go from that to how broke I once was in my life. I've had the water turned off in my apartment. I've been completely without power, without water, without a cell phone. I've gone to an ATM and prayed I had $21 at the bank so it would spit a 20 out because all it would spit was 20s. And I got $14 in there and I can't even get a $20 bill out of an ATM. I know what all that is, but I also know what it's like to touch my dreams. And now I know what it's like to live my dreams. And what's different about me than most people is I didn't get rich telling people how to get rich. I got rich, then I tell people what I did to get rich. And so in this book is the strategies of how I did it. And I documented it.
Yeah. And it's a really good book.
Thank you.
And so I think a great transition and foundation to before we talk about the book is to talk about the reticular activating system, the RAS. We've talked about neuroplasticity a lot on the show. We've had John Assaraf on and Dr. Caroline Leaf.
Love them both.
And we've talked a bit about this, but I'd love to hear it from your perspective. So what is the reticular activating system and how do things like stepping into your dream activate the system?
You're one of my favorite interviews ever, seriously. So RAS is chapter 2 in my book. I cover it. I call it the Matrix in the book, but here's what it is. It's the filter that reveals to you everything that matters to you in your life that's important, and it proves to you that you're right. It's the prover. It keeps you sane, too. Otherwise, you'd be thinking about all the stimulus. The blood in your right ear going right now. You're breathing, right? So you have to stay sane. So it reveals to you what's most important to you. I'll give you an example. I just bought a Tesla about a week ago. I like what Elon Musk is doing. I call my team. I go, hey, get me one of these Teslas. I want to start driving the guy's car. Next day, Tesla's in my driveway. And I'm driving it. All of a sudden now I'm like, seeing freaking Teslas everywhere. Babe, red one. There's a white one. The other day, I'm like, there's 3 in a row. You got to be kidding. I'm on the freeway, 3 lanes over, the other direction, going the other way. Babe, there's a black Tesla. I see them everywhere now. Weren't they always there? They were. Yeah. But I didn't see them before because they weren't a part of my RAS. They weren't programmed in my filter. When you go into a crowded room, I go into a crowded room. There could be 500 people in a room. Audibly, then you have to say it loud. Someone says Ed. If I hear that name, I can hear it audibly over. Why? It's important to me. So the key thing in life is that programming your mind, that the Teslas become the relationships, the meetings, the thoughts, the breakthroughs you have to have in your life. They were always there. They're there right now. But you're not seeing them because they're not programmed into your RAS. They're not programmed like the Tesla is. How do you program? I teach you in the book, but I'll give you one thing. Repeated hyper visualizations of your dreams and your imagination and what you want. I have a chapter in the book where I say become an impossibility thinker and a possibility achiever. And here's the deal. In your life, you operate out of either 2 frames of thinking. 99% of the people operate, once they're an adult, out of history and memory. They operate out of it. They have patterns of thoughts, patterns of behaviors. They operate out of this, and they reinforce it with different people, different circumstances, same life. 1% of the people operate out of imagination and dream. That's what they did when they were a child. The reason you were happier when you were a little girl or a little boy, 1, you were closer to God because you had just left there. 2, you had no history and memory to operate out of. You operate out of imagination. So to flip that in your life, you start imagining and dreaming. When you have a thought, an actual thought, it creates a space in your world that did not exist prior to that thought being created. And now your mind goes to work on filling it up with references and proof. So if you worry about your anxieties, your fears, your worries, your past, you constantly find the Teslas that reinforce that. If you've created a thought that's about the future and an imagination and a dream, and you go touch it once in a while, and you repeatedly visualize it over and over again, very simple, I teach you how to do it in the book, you're doing it anyway. You're repeatedly visualizing and thinking about what you're worried about, what you fear all the time. I'm just flipping it into imagination. Then you'll begin to see those Teslas of your life, the meetings, the people, the places, the things. And by the way, you're 1 podcast away, 1 decision away, 1 meeting, 1 relationship away from changing your life. That's the power of 1 more also.
Yeah. And so with the RAS, you could actually program it in a bad way, right?
Yeah.
You could be thinking about bad things, saying bad things about yourself, and then you perceive the world with all these bad things that you don't want. So can you talk to us about how to make sure that we program it in the right way?
Programming in the right way is repeated thoughts, visualizations. It's associating with people that also can reinforce those beliefs and thoughts. If you want to know how powerful our RAS is, let's go back to the drug addict or alcoholic example. You will find a way to get what you're obsessed with in your life. So if you're obsessed with your worries and your fears, you'll find a way to get them. You'll get them. Every week you'll get them. No matter how good life is, you'll get that depression. You'll get that anxiety. You'll get that anger. You'll get that worry because it's familiar. Caroline Leaf has a really interesting thing where she talks about, like, a lot of times, like, our emotions aren't good or bad. They just are. And so whatever they are, you're going to get them. That drug addict, though, think about this for a minute. Isn't it incredible? Think of someone you know maybe that's had a drug problem.
Mm-hmm.
They could literally be living on the street. No resources, no job, no money, no nothing. Somehow every day they find a way to get those drugs, don't they? How do they? Maybe they got to do something illegal. Whatever they got to do, they get those drugs. They get them with no resources, no preparation, no nothing. So what if those drugs became your dreams? The fact that you have no preparation, the fact that you have no resources is inconsequential. People prove it every day with the negative stuff in their life, don't they? But you can prove it with the positive stuff in your life. And the way you do it is repeatedly visualizing it. The other thing you do is you begin to do 1 more. In your life, stay with me. I have a chapter on goals, which is great. I show you how to set goals the best way I know how. But at best, you're going to get 25% of your goals if they're ambitious. What will you get all the time in your life? Your standards. You will eventually always get your standards. So goals without standards are empty. That's why I teach the goal chapter and the standards chapter together. Standard, stay with me. You've had someone on your show who stole my content, I guarantee you, because I've been saying this for 30 years, and says, if you want to build self-confidence, you got to keep the promises you make to yourself. Everyone says that now. I'm pretty sure I said it first, but even if I didn't, who cares, right? And so if you don't have any self-confidence, it's because you have a reputation with yourself of you don't keep the promises you make. You want to build self-confidence? Start keeping the promises you make. which is great, but anybody can do that. But what if you change the standard? What if it was one more? What if I don't just keep the promises I make to myself, but I do one more? So I'm not just going to keep the promise to work out and do 10 reps in the gym. I'm going to do it and do one more. I'm not just going to do cardio and do 30 minutes. I'm going to do it and one more minute. I'm not just going to make 10 contacts a day, keep that promise. I'm going to do the 10 contacts, keep the promise, and my standard's one more. I'm not just going to tell my daughter I love her every day and keep that promise to myself. I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to do it one more time every day. Now you're superhuman. Now you've transformed yourself into someone who had no self-confidence to confidence to superhuman. And so that's the standard that changes our life, and that's how we begin to reprogram our RAS.
I love that. I love this concept of one more. I have to say, it's a very unique concept. I read self-improvement books all the time. And I love the fact that you're just saying, like, just go a little further. Like, give it 110%. You know, don't just stop at 100. It's not enough. So I love that. So your book comes out June 1st. Is it still coming out June 1st?
Yeah, as far as I know. I hope so.
Amazing. Well, I was lucky to get a copy of it before. Like I said, I absolutely loved it. You just kind of went over one more. So let's talk about identity. I think that's the next good point to kind of discuss. Let's talk about how you define identity and how our identity is shaped in childhood.
Well, it's installed in us. So our parents install, our loving parents, even if they're loving, they install some of their limiting beliefs into us when we're defenseless, when we're kids. We don't know. My dad, God bless him, I love my father very much. He was a great man. But he would have this thing he would always say to me, you'll get a kick out of this. He'd say, be careful. Since I was a little boy, hey, Daddy, I'm going to look. Hey, have a great game. Be careful. I don't even think he knew why he was saying it. I'm 50 years old last year. What do you got going today? I go, I'm taking Max to the age games. Have a great time. Be careful. What am I being careful for? Right? I got a speech in front of 30,000. He goes, crush the speech. Be careful. Like it's a figure of speech, right? But it's reflective of something inside him. And my dad was not a risk taker. Right? My dad always wondered who's out. And so I got older and I grew up like, I got to be careful. What are they going to do to me? Maybe I don't want to make a mistake. What are people going to think about me? You know, I don't want to blow this business deal. I'd worry. Why am I a worrier? Because I've always been told to be careful. He didn't even mean it, but he said it. And so that became part of my identity. Your identity is your self-worth. It's the thoughts, beliefs, and concepts that you hold to be the most true about you. Here's the best analogy I give on it. Your identity is the thermostat setting of your life. So in this room, it's set at 75 degrees. It's actually not. It's actually set at 70 today, so we'll use 70. It's at 70 degrees. Outside, I live at the beach. It's about 85 degrees right now. The external conditions have nothing to do with this thermostat. Because when it's 85 outside, the air conditioner kicks on and regulates the room to 70. That's your life. I'm going to explain your life to you now, everyone. So if you stay at a 70-degree identity, let's just say there's different ones. Faith, fitness, fun, bliss, peace, money. Let's just use success. Money, let's just say. You have a 70-degree internal thermostat worth of money. And you start learning all these skills on the podcast and in your business. And now you're at 80. Man, you're cranking. You're making 150 grand. 95 degrees of money. Eventually, when those results exceed your identity, you will unconsciously turn the air conditioner on of your life. Uh-oh, everyone's like, shit, he's right. And you will eventually, over time, cool it back down to exactly what that thermostat setting is, no matter what. And it'll seem coincidentally like, no. Crypto dropped. The stock market went the wrong way. Interest rates went up. Supply chain. I had to loan my friend some money. My car broke down. My mom needed help. Baloney. You turn the air conditioner on in your life and you got it back. You see it in fitness. Someone's a 70-degree fitness person. They got 20 pounds too much weight. They lose the weight. You see them a year later, they put it back on. Air conditioner kicked back on. So the key thing is, as you're accumulating skills, is to adjust your identity. And in the book, I teach a trilogy of identity. I'll just give you what it is without teaching it. Faith. If you're a person of faith, it's amazing to me how someone will go to church on Sunday and worship God. I'm a Christian, but whatever your faith is, or their mosque, or their synagogue, or maybe they'll go to Bible study. God's with them then. But when they walk into a sales call, they're alone. When they walk into a business meeting, they're alone. Bring your faith with you into your business life. 2, intentions. Give yourself more credit for your intentions in your life. You intend to serve. You intend. Before we did the show today, I turned my camera off real quick. I said, just give me a second. And I just went, Lord, just please bless me today. Let me say the right words on the show. And then I remind myself, I intend to help people today. I may not have every answer, but my intentions are good. My identity comes from that. And then the third part of the trilogy is associations. If you're around 150 degrees and you're a 70 degreer, they will heat you up by proximity over time. And the closer you get to them, the more they can heat you up. And so faith, intention, association.
Yes, I love that. I want to dig deep on some of these. So let's talk about intention. So a lot of people, we were talking about it before, sometimes we have negative self-talk, right? And we truly believe we don't deserve what we want. Like we might want to be a doctor, but like deep down inside, we don't feel like we're worth it to be a doctor. Can you talk about how we need to understand that our intention matters of wanting that goal? Yep. Because if we never really accept that we can achieve it, we'll never get it.
I was 28 years old and I won a trip to Hawaii for my financial business. And luckily I get up before the sun does. And back in those days, I'm 100 years old. So no one used to work out that was in the business world. There was like people at the gym and they were all like in construction or blue collar. White collar people never worked out. I was one of the first ones, you know, and I'm like, so I got up to run. Sun's not up yet. There's this guy running towards me on the beach, bald guy, hairy back, sweating. I'm like, whoa. And he gets closer to me, and it's a man named Wayne Dyer. And Wayne Dyer is one of the all-time most beautiful thought leaders, influencers before there were influencers of all time. And it was a hero of mine. Like there was Tony Robbins and Wayne Dyer. And God's good that he brought both of them into my life as friends. So that morning he runs by me. I go, wait, Dr. Dyer. I had a Walkman, Sony Walkman on. It's so old. And I go, Dr. Dyer, you changed my life. And he had a deep voice like me. He turns around, he pulls his Walkman off. He goes, well, I doubt that. You probably changed your life, but how did I help? And he walks towards me and we sit down on the beach. And for the next 90 minutes, I watch the sun come up and I talk with one of the greatest thought leaders in the world. And in that conversation, he said, Ed, you're going to change the world. I'm sure he said that to other people, right? But at the time I was like, really? And he said, you're brilliant. The way you think about the mind and life and business, my gosh. And he goes, and that's not why. And he goes, and if you begin to attach your confidence and worth, Ed, to your abilities and your achievements, you're in big trouble. And I went, what? I thought you were supposed to do that. He goes, Ed, you'll always be chasing it. And when you have a setback or you have it's going to cascade down on you. I go, well, then what should I attach my worth to? He said, you're going to change the world, Ed, because your heart's so beautiful. Your intentions are amazing. Focus on your intentions all your life. You intend to make a difference. You intend to get. He goes, there's nothing wrong, Ed, with walking into a meeting going, I don't know, but I'll find out. There's nothing wrong with saying, I've changed my mind. There's nothing wrong with saying, I was wrong. And he said, you have beautiful intentions. And it was something I knew. By the way, everyone listening to this, they know about themselves. And went, well, I never believed my abilities were great. Anybody ever told me, I'm like, yeah, but, or you're being nice. But when someone says, you intend to help, you intend to do good, I'm like, you got me there. You're right. I do. And so for the rest of my life so far, I've attached my worth, my identity to my intention to, when I walked into that orphanage, was I the most skilled psychologist or dad in the world? No. My intentions were to love those boys. My intentions were to show up for them every day and make a difference in their life. And I showed up damn big. I showed up strong. I've showed up to a lot of business meetings, not the most smart guy in the room, but I showed up intending to help people. And I've shown up big. So this thing of linking to your intentions will change your life.
Yeah, I think this is just so powerful, like not being worried about where you are now in the present and realizing that your potential is your intentions to improve in your life. And that is huge. So one other thing that I learned about you when I was studying you is how loyal you are. Like you're really loyal. You've been with the same woman since you were in grade school, which for me, as a woman, I'm like, oh wow, this is like a good man. You know what I mean? Because there's plenty of shiny objects. I'm sure your wife is gorgeous, so that really helps. Of course, it doesn't hurt, that she's gorgeous. But I would love to understand, like, how do you design your social circle in terms of the associations you make in your life? Because clearly you've kept some people around for a long time. You didn't just go try to find a new circle. There's a lot of people that you've kept around. So how do you design your social circle?
The whole thing, like drop certain people. I've had to drop a few, but not that many. What I have done with people that don't serve me any longer is I've reduced my proximity to them. I don't see them as much. But for them to be banished from my life, I've not done a lot of that. I add new people. And so what I try to do when I add new people is I want people that love me, but I actually look for a criteria in people that, do they support my values? And so like, I don't know. I mean, I don't like when I go to Vegas a couple times a year with a group of men. All of them are amazing husbands. A couple of them are pastors of churches, you know, like that doesn't hurt. But like, I don't want to be around dudes who don't live that part of their life correctly because it might rub off on me. I'm not perfect, so I don't want to rub off on me. If someone is, doesn't keep their word or isn't meticulous in telling the truth, we all have that friend. We're like, he is such a right? You have that friend. They're not going to be around me that much, right? I want people that believe in me. And here's the biggie. I have a lot of funny friends. You see them on my social media. Like I have people that really make you laugh. I love people that make me laugh. And I'm an introvert, so I like to be around extroverted people so I can just be a fly on the wall, you know? And so, but a big one is that I want people who don't accept me as I am. And most people are looking for friends who accept them as they are. I'm not looking for that. I'm not looking for acceptance. I'm looking for people that believe in me so much that they think I could even be better than I am. And they hold me to that standard. There's that standard word again. That when I'm around them, here's a biggie. Wow, are you going to be shocked when you listen to this one, everyone? If more than 5% of our friends' conversations are about, remember when? Remember? You remember? George Lopez has this great skit on it. What do you do when you get a lot of your friends? Reminisce. Which is cool a little bit, 5% of the time. But that means you're operating out of that history and memory. Most of my friends, we do a little, I mean very little of the remember, but we do a lot of imagining. We do a lot of dreaming. We do a lot of, here's where I'm going, man. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what we could do. Let's do this next. We operate in the present, but we talk about the future a lot, not the past. I don't want a lot of friends to talk about the past. I can do that anytime I want. That ain't where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's huge. I love that advice. Okay, let's talk about the difference between self-confidence and identity. I think this is another big concept in your book. Talk to us about what we need to understand when it comes to self-confidence and how it differs from identity.
Well, self-confidence is that relationship. It's a reputation that you have with yourself. Identity is who you believe you are. And so they're connected. They're like identical twin sisters, but they're not exactly the same. So self-confidence is a relationship and reputation with yourself. That's what it is. And for me, there's another side of self-confidence that most people don't talk about, which is humility. I want friends that have tremendous humility along with their self-confidence, because humility keeps you curious. It keeps you growing. Only a super self-confident, truly self-confident person can be humble, because they're comfortable with themselves enough to say, I could get better. It takes strength to say I could get better. It takes strength to have humility. And so I look for that, and I hope I have that. Identity is actually who you believe you are and what you believe you're worth. And that's a whole different animal altogether. And so although I want you to have a ton of self-confidence, you could be the most confident thing in the world, but what if you place your confidence in an identity about yourself that's way less than is true? So I'm very confident in who I am. You ever meet these people? Man, that's just who I am. And they're really confident about it. It's just who I am, man. It's just they're really confident they're right. So they got a ton of self-confidence. They're just wrong or limited in themselves in their identity. And so although I really believe working on your confidence is not that difficult to do and you should do, the real hard work in life is to change that identity. Because that identity, you started developing that thing when you were a little girl and you fed it over time. And so that identity is this thing you're never going to escape. It's that thermostat setting of your life. And for me, it's, look, if I'm really the child of a loving God, if you really believe that, how am I not amazing? How am I not been born to do something great with my life? So if you have a faith, attach it to your identity, right? I'm your brother because we're the same blood's running through both of us, but I'm a child of an awesome God. So there's that. My intentions, man, I really want to make a difference in the world. I really want to help people. I'm looking at the ocean right now. I could actually just have my butt on that beach right now every single day if I wanted to. But that's not where my intentions lie. My intentions lie that someone's listening to this right now. It's going to change their life. You're going to grab my book. It's going to change their freaking life. So my intentions are good. And then third, I'm around people all the time who believe in me, who challenge me, who push me, who are further down the road. There's this great Chinese proverb that says, if you want to know the road ahead, ask those coming back. And so I try to have some friends in my life that are older than me that have already been down the road I'm going, and I can ask them for directions. And so for me, for most of you, I could be that person, right? Mine is people you know really, really well who run big, big companies and are well-known people. But the only reason it's not because they're well-known, it's they've been down the road and they're coming back. And so I want to know the road ahead. And so that's who you should have in your life, is someone like that. And by the way, not all your associations have to be in person. They could be a book. When I read a book, I pretend I'm living with Napoleon Hill that week. I'm living with Ed Mylett. He's speaking to me. These words were written for me. He's talking to me. I've spent the week with Wayne Dyer many times when I wasn't with him before I met him. I felt like when I met him, I knew him. When people meet me, my biggest compliment they give me is they feel like they know me. And that means they've really studied me. They've really been in my life. And hopefully when I make an Instagram post or I have a podcast or a YouTube video or I write a book, they're like, you're talking to me. And that's association as well, is stuff like this.
Yeah, 100%. I have to say that I feel like, especially if you're just starting out, if you just read and keep leveling up and leveling up and leveling, eventually you're going to meet your mentors that you're reading, just like what you're saying. I've been listening to Ed Mylett for years. Now I'm interviewing him, you know, because I leveled myself up to be able to have the opportunity to do something like that. And part of that is learning and studying and doing things on your own. And sometimes your mentors are people you don't really get to talk to your point. So I love that. Okay, so one story that I want you to share that I think is going to help us like kind of wrap things up and round things out is your story about your uncle who passed away when he was just 50 years old, and how that really triggered you to create a healthier lifestyle for yourself and set your perspective in terms of how you set goals and standards and some of the things that you've been alluding to that I really want you to cover before we end.
I want to acknowledge you, though. I mean, you really do your research, you know.
I do.
You really do. You're incredible. My uncle was my godfather, and in my family, you know, godfather's a big deal. I looked like him. You ever have that relative you look like? You kind of look like him, right? So I kind of look like him. He was walking through the lobby of a hotel when he was 50, and he passed over and died of a massive heart attack. Young family, 3 children. And when I was at his funeral, I was flying back with my wife on the airplane, and heart attacks are in my RAS now, right? And the Oprah Winfrey show's playing on the TV, on the radio, the TV of the airplane. And all of a sudden, I have my headphones on, listen, and I see this heart on the screen. I notice it. I unplug my headphones, plug into the plane system. They're talking about these new scans that could read for plaques and arteries. And I go to Christiana, I go to my wife, I go, hey, sign me up for one of those. She goes, why? You're barely 30. I go, I don't know. I think I should get it done. She's like, you're the fittest dude in the world. I go, just schedule me. And so I ended up going to do the scan, and I had a doctor who understood influence and change. What do most doctors do? Okay, here's your prescription, you know. He didn't do that. So you do the scan. I went to lunch. I literally got a burrito. I came back in, and I'm in the lobby. There's 2 people in the lobby. This doctor knew who I was. He was pretending, but he was getting leverage on me. Because when you have big enough reasons, remember this, you'll do anything for those reasons. That's my chapter on goal setting, is mainly about reasons. So he goes, I'm looking for Edward Mylett. And I go, I'm Ed Mylett. And he goes, oh. And he looks down at my chart, and we're standing in the lobby still. And he goes, oh my God, I can't believe these arteries are in that young of a man's body. And I went, what the is in that scan? Right? He's already got my attention, right? He knows how to present. He goes, wow, come with me, young man. And we walked in silence back into his office. He sits down, he closes the folder. And so my information's in that folder. What could he have really done? This is in sales too. You could just give the presentation, but they didn't create the need or the reasons. He didn't get me emotional, because you're always making people feel something. He took control of what he wanted me to feel. Most people aren't intentional about their energy and what they make people feel. He puts it down. He goes, let me just ask you a question, young man. I said, yeah. He goes, are you married? And he knew. I said, I am, sir. You love your wife? I go, yeah, I met her when we were little kids. He goes, you got a son? I said, yeah, I got a little 2-year-old. And he goes, that's awesome. He goes, you have any interest in being at his high school graduation? I said, what did you just say? He goes, do you want to be at his high school graduation? I said, of course I do. He goes, you're not going to be. Not the road you're going. You're going to be just like your Uncle Mike. Now I know he knows about me. And he goes, you got a little girl? I said, yeah, she's a little baby. And this is where you get to a dad. He goes, what's her name? I said, Bella. He goes, do you want to walk her down the aisle on her wedding day, or is she going to be on the arm of another man, giving her away? I went, what the is in that scan, dude? And he goes, you listen to me very carefully, young man. If you don't change what you're doing, you won't be there for that graduation. There'll be another man on the arm of your beautiful wife running around your mansion. And that same guy's going to walk your daughter down the aisle on her wedding day if you don't change things. I'm like, what is in that scan? Now he's got me, right? That's how you sell, by the way. And he goes, there's the good news. If you do exactly what I tell you to do, you'll walk that little precious girl of yours down the aisle someday. And if you don't, it's not going to happen. You do exactly what I tell you, workout, nutrition, supplements, the medication, and I've done it. People ask me, you're 51, you're one of the more fit dudes in the world at your age. Why is it? Because about 10 million mornings a year, I'm exaggerating, I wake up and I don't want to go work out, and I go, Bella's wedding, and I get my ass up out of that bed and I go work out. I've been on the road for 3 days. I haven't, there's no Bella's wedding. Get up, find a gym. And so it's changed my life, that meeting, because he got leverage on me and reasons. You show me a man or a woman with big enough reasons, really big reasons, which are always born out of love, I'll show you somebody who will get up and do anything to make that happen. And that's the reason why I'm still here. Hopefully she's not getting married anytime soon, but if she does, I'm ready to walk her down the aisle.
It's such a beautiful story, and it's so powerful because it's empty. Like, goals can be really empty, right? Goals can be empty, hard to follow through on if there's no big reason behind it. And so I guess the moral of the story is to have a reason and have it be connected to love and people, like you just said. I think that's another key point.
People always ask me, what are your reasons? There are two things. They're your dreams or other people.